Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Police Accountability Board meeting of August 7th, 2025. I would like to officially call the meeting to order, and we will start by having the members introduce themselves and their affiliation to the Police Accountability Board. Leslie.
Good evening, Dr. Leslie Myers-Small, Executive Director.
The Reverend Keith Patterson, I'm an YAC member.
Rabbi Doris Settle, I represent Northwest Council seat.
I'm PAB, and I am the East District Council seat appointee
And Vice Chair.
and Vice Chair.
I'm William Clark, Chair of the Police Accountability Board, and I'm the Mayor's appointee.
Mary Alice, Northeast Council.
Ron Wilson, South Council seat.
Will Cleveland, I am a policy data analyst in the policy and division.
Thank you. Now that the meeting has been officially called to order, I will ask for approval of the minutes. Everyone should receive those on August 1st. And first, I'll ask, are there any adjustments to the minutes, any corrections? Hearing none, I'll hear for a motion to approve the minutes.
Go for it, I'll second.
Okay. Thanks. The minutes have been approved, and with that,
We didn't vote.
all in favor? Great, it's unanimous. And Larry, that's why I said I was keeping you around, so keep you on track. So the minutes have been approved, and with that, we will move on to the board presentations. Leslie?
Give us a warning.
Oh, sorry.
You need to have a mic.
Yes, please.
So just by way of introduction, Will Cleveland, who's a data policy analyst, will be presenting on the Rochester Police Department budget analysis for fiscal years 2014 to 2023. Take it away.
Sorry.
Whoa.
Firstly, thanks for having me tonight. Excited to be here, and we're going to look at. You guys hear me okay with the microphone? All right, so we're going to be looking through this oversight investigation that we've been working on for the last few months. Firstly, we're going to be looking at, like Leslie said, the budget fiscal years 2014 to 2013. First of all, I'm going to walk you through the key findings from this analysis. And firstly, a reminder that this is an oversight investigation where we're using public data, internal records from our PD and peer city comparisons to understand how our PD allocates and spends its budget. We're looking closely at both the formal budgeting process and the actual financial decisions made by the department. And this is an oversight investigation, which means we're not offering recommendations for this. This is just our analysis and all of our observations. We're evaluating performance. We're not evaluating performance at all. Instead, we're focusing on how the budget is structured, what's driving its growth, and how transparent the budgeting process is. The goal of that is to give the community a solid foundation for more informed conversations moving forward. And like we already mentioned, we looked at fiscal years 2014 to 2013. We considered both approved and actual budget figures. So as a basis, important to know that the approved budget is the annual operating budget in the fiscal year that's approved by City Council every June. And a reminder that the city's fiscal calendar runs from July 1st through the following June. And then we're comparing that approved budget with the actual budget, which is the real amount of money that's spent by the city department. During the course of the year, some funds were actually used, and includes adjustments or amendments, emergencies, and savings. So as a foundation, this is the accounting of the city's police budget over the last 10 years, 2014 to 2023. And the first column is the approved amount. The second column shows the actual budget, while the last column shows the percent difference between what was approved and what was actually spent.
Do you want questions during or at the end?
At the end.
At the end, please.
Okay.
Okay, so actual spending, as you can see here, actual spending typically exceeds approved numbers. But in recent years, the gap between the approved budget and the actual budget has grown quite a bit. The overage surged more than 20%, in 2023, representing more than more than $18 million in unplanned spending. So, we need to consider then that this upward trend in the budget increasingly out of step with actual operational costs, on then how we consider the causes of those overages, and as department officials have told us, it's really driven by overtime and staffing. Get into that a little bit. Okay, so trying to focus on this long quote, it's a quote that we got from a meeting that we had with RPD back in June, where we met with Chief Smith, as well as members of the leadership team, members of the budget team, and then representatives from the department's OBI, which is the Office of Business Intelligence. So this quote really kind of provides a foundation for a lot of the questions that we had. We were looking at why is RPD's staffing number what it is. So this quote is interesting because it says year over year, we don't have the ability to reevaluate that number. The number being how many officers are budgeted. It's typically about the range of 720. So it's important to know that RPD has not conducted a full department-wide staffing analysis in over 20 years. So it shows that how staffing decisions are really made currently. So it's not built from the ground up each year. Instead, it's not based on an analysis for local community needs or crime trends. Instead, they start with last year's budgeted number and then make small adjustments, +3, -2, or 3 or 4, without kind of rethinking the overall structure. So if the number of officers isn't based on a comprehensive data-driven assessment, but rather on legacy budgets and internal reallocation, then we're kind of missing an opportunity to align the resources with actual public safety needs. So we're trying to acknowledge that even if a full analysis did show the department needed significantly more officers, the city's budget and union structures don't allow for those shifts to be made to implement or to add more officers or even subtract officers. So since 2000, the budget number has been between 701 and 741 sworn officers. For the major year of analysis, 2023, that number stood at 723. This is kind of despite major shifts in crime trends, different mayoral offices, technology, community expectations, all these things. And we're trying to put this in the context of the 2024 Department of Justice study that was about debunking police staffing models. And with this one, this study really talked about how these departments are using these default benchmarks. So one of the benchmarks that a lot of departments rely on is this officers per 1,000 arrests number. So they're using these numbers without reevaluating whether those numbers kind of reflect the operational needs or the organizational efficiency. So again, without this detailed evidence-based staffing analysis, it's hard to know if these resources are being used in the most effective way. So important decisions about police coverage, spending, and community impact could really benefit from a fresh look. And one of the major things we looked at was we got from the city's internal database, which is known as MUNIS, we were able to access, since 2011, a breakdown of spending by division, by unit, by office. It was a longitudinal study was pretty difficult, just because since 2016, the department's undergone 3 separate reorganizations. So we found that year by year, some of these offices might have different names, or they might not exist anymore. But with that being keeping in mind, we were able to see that 35 internal budget categories were consistent throughout this. And during that period, we found that spending rose in 22 of those areas. And then specifically, we looked, when you guys will see the paper that I drafted, we looked specifically at 5 different categories: disability, major crimes, professional development, special events, and special investigations were the ones that we singled out. Special events being the most interesting one, seeing that spending increased 24%. But to put that in context, the budget for special events in 2014 was $90,000, and then it rose to $2.3 million by 2023. But almost 99% of that 2023 budget was was just for overtime. And special events has really kind of become this catch-all for that we uses for budget. Sorry, overtime. So it's what you see, like we can see, like in Puerto Rican Festival, you saw a bunch of officers out there, working the details. And that was largely overtime through special events, to see them stand outside the Red Wings, the Amherst games, things like that. So a lot of the times those the money spent on special events is reimbursed, but in a lot of cases it's not, and that's where we're seeing a surge in spending. So it's not that the report just isn't about the numbers again, it's about kind of the structures that exist within the department that are kind of pushing these overtime numbers forward.
Can you just, I'm sorry, I didn't understand all the categories. Could you say what disability is?
Yeah, so that's officers who are on long-term disability.
I just want to check.
That's included in personnel costs. Major crimes would be obviously the folks showing up at crime scenes and stuff like that. Professional development would be training, special events, what we just kind of talked about. And then special investigations is kind of a subset of major crimes. They're kind of tasked with investigating different things. So now we've discovered that personnel costs account for more than 90% of RPD's total budget. And so you'll see from the top red line is actually RPD's total actual budget during that time. The line below it, the blue one, is the total personnel spending. So RPD's spending went from 74 million on personnel to 99 million in fiscal year 2023. And that's largely been driven by salary increases, benefits, and contractual obligations from 3 separate collective bargaining agreements with the local stuff, the police union, and the union representing sworn officers. So during that time, RPD's total budget increased 26%. But then to put it in proper context, we have to show that the city's overall budget went up 31%, but that was still slower than the rate of inflation, which was about 37%. So while RPD's budget's growing, it's not growing as fast as total city budget and the rate of inflation. So, like we said today, more than 90% of RPD's budget is spent for personnel alone, so that leaves very little kind of flexibility for other priorities. And I was trying really hard to animate it, and I don't have the skills to do it yet. But so the gap between the two lines every year is roughly 10 to 12 million. So that's the spending and everything else outside of personnel is largely remained consistent. Even like if you consider like 2016 is when they purchased all of the first one buying of cameras. So even when they did that, some of it was paid for by grant. But even when they're doing these bigger spends on technology or upgrades in certain areas, there's still that 10 to 12 million that's kind of operational costs that kind of remain consistent every year. So the number that's really driving this obviously is. And next we'll jump into a little look at RPD's overages caused by overtime. So on the left-hand side, we have just the fiscal years, and I thought it was just easier to show it instead of showing like the actual numbers spent each year. We can see the overages. So every single year that RPD that we track RPD's budget, the spending has gone up on overtime. It's always the actual amount has always been more than the approved amount. It's gone from 1.6 million in 1 year to 2023 when it was 2022 when it was almost 5 million more than what they actually asked for. So even though overtime is really only a small portion of RPD's total personnel costs, so overtime is included in the personnel costs that you'll see in the budget here. So even though overtime is only a small portion of it, it's really indicative of all the rises that we're seeing, and it's largely driven according to RPD leadership by staff shortages. At this point, they tell us that they're 110 officers short, which is about a 15% vacancy rate. And then, so if we look further into overtime, we look at how RPD puts its overtime into these different categories. So there's filling vacancies, there's callbacks, or there's officers might be held over to complete some of this paperwork. But callbacks would be if there's some sort of emergency or major event where they need more manpower. They might call an officer back. Property special events, attending court or attorney meetings are some of the major categories. The two leading categories of overtime spending that we found were special events and staff. So in the most recent year, we look at 2024, we were able to see that RPD spent our RPD officers worked 46,000 hours of overtime for special events and 42,000 for the staff shortages. And the reason I'm using hours for this is because that's the way RPD is tracking overtime. So they're not tracking it by the money they're spending, they're tracking it by hours worked. According to them, they told us that it makes it easier for them to compare years when they're labeling it by how many hours.
Could you give those numbers again for the two categories?
Sure. So, 2024, fiscal year 2024, special events overtime accounted for 46,000 hours of overtime, and staff shortages were the second most common source of overtime, and that was 42,000. Next, we looked at, we did some benchmarking. So we looked at RPD spending when compared to places across the country, New York State, and then Oregon. Thought looking at, so I selected the 10 cities that we used for this. RPD actually on their open data portal has a same, like a similar cities dashboard that they use, but they don't take into account population. So the cities in that they consider to be the most similar are certain places like Milwaukee or Buffalo and Syracuse still rank near the top, but it has a lot of cities that have 300,000 to 400,000 more people in Rochester. So we collected data from these 25 municipalities, including New York State, Orange County, and then peer cities. For these other cities, we considered things like demographics, population, policing structure, poverty rate, things like that, to kind of get a better idea. And it was my goal to make this sample set as geographically diverse as possible. So I didn't want to make it just so it was just Northeast cities or Rust Belt. So that's why you see like Spokane, Washington, or Birmingham, Alabama, put it in here because I wanted to make sure we were looking at the entire country. And this was kind of a practice that we learned from another study that was done by the Bureau of Institute of Justice that did a big policing budget study back in 2020. So we tried to use their model as the model that we were going to use. And interestingly enough, we found that Rochester is spending a lot per resident on policing. So we're in 2023, Rochester spent $527, which made it the second highest rather in this national data set that we came up with. Birmingham being the only one that was more, and a lot of cities, spent considerably less on police.
Yeah.
But we can place that in better context if we look at this officer to resident ratio. So we tried to figure out how many officers per 1,000 residents the employees. Keeping in mind that FBI data in 2019, which is the most recent year it was calculated, agencies across the country average was 2.4 officers per 1,000 residents. So in Rochester, we came up with number 3.48. Again, we're behind Birmingham. So, like we said, that number is well above national average, and all this information just came from public sources and records across the state. So we did this kind of look to kind of explain how Rochester ranks both in terms of spending and staffing to get a better idea of just how we rank, basically, just to kind of add more context. Yes.
Did we look at crime rates in these?
We did. We'll get to that.
Okay, great.
Yeah. I anticipated that. So I had a thank you slide, and if you guys were going to ask it, I actually came up with a violent crime rates slide. So these are the violent crime rates. The national average in 2023 was 363 incidents per 1,000 residents. So you see Rochester actually falls at the lower end of the spectrum, still above the national average, but obviously significantly lower than places like Dayton and Peoria. We didn't do a lot of study of this just because it's really hard to kind of draw conclusions. This is kind of this is obviously based on more than just police spending or there's so many factors that lead into this type of number, but it is still, I think, informative to look at how Rochester ranks for what we're spending, for how many officers we're employing, and what sort of outcomes we're getting. So I'm not comfortable making any big assertions based on what we found here, but if nothing else, I think it provides a better, it provides more information that might not have been previously. So that was kind of cool. Yeah. So there's within the report, there's there's, 4 or 5 different appendices that just show your tables that have this kind of information in there. And my goal is also we're gonna release all of the data that I collected, so I collected, budget stuff for the town of Greece that has never been posted online, stuff like that, so I think it'd be informative for the public to see where money's being spent across. So that's a good one, but, that's all I got for you guys.
Thank you. All right, thank you.
Happy to take any questions.
I did have one, when you did the analysis, does that also include the 114 vacancies? When you get to 3.48 officers
So
per?
that's just the budgeted number. So that's the staffing, the officer per resident ratio was based on just the budgeted number. And
Okay.
we kept it as the budgeted number for every place we looked at, just because it would be really difficult for me to ascertain what the vacancy rate is. And it's important to note that even though there's a vacancy rate here, that's a phenomenon that every department is facing. Like, it's more difficult than ever for these departments to recruit, and they will tell you that. So, what we're seeing here with officer vacancies is really different from what we're seeing. So even though they're going to tell us that they're that many officers short, it's something that's everywhere.
All right, thanks.
So I have a couple questions, okay. First of all, who approves additional spending? In other words, if they go, if the police department goes over its budget, who approves that additional spending?
So that's presented in the form of budget amendments that then be approved by city council.
The city council approves all that additional spending.
Generally, sometimes some of the overages will be covered in the form of different grants or state money. You'll see like some of the overtime, like specifically like through the GIVE initiative, which is, the gun involved violence. I was from the East Bay for it. But anyways, it's the statewide program where they're targeting the large counties outside of New York City, with additional funds that are gonna help pay for some of these overtime details. But also some of that funding also goes towards the Montgomery County District Attorney's Office. So some of that funding is coming from grants from the state, but the overtime that we tracked was specifically just city approved.
Okay, thank you. So another question, is 90% being spent on personnel and visual for police departments?
It's
No, I think it is. Okay.
I mean, if you look across every city department, people are obviously the most expensive resource. Look at the PAB's budget, the majority of their budget is being spent on people. If you look at, the plow drivers, you look at, environmental services or whatever. And so that's not different. It's just the fact that so much of their increases in personnel are being mandated through these city approved labor contracts. And then when you guys get a hold of the report, you'll see, I did a whole deep dive into the latest CBA to look at the built-in raises that are in there. Show, that policing is going to continue to, personnel costs are going to continue to go up, regardless, at least through 2028. Those are the raises built into the labor contract.
So here's the question, if there's no staffing analysis, how can they say they're understaffed?
Yeah, so I take it back to, the best way I can answer that, I take it back to, if you rewatch Chief Smith's testimony during the most recent city council led budget hearing back in May, he talked about how the department is anticipating that they're going to be short, like they know there's going to be shortages. And he said that they could comfortably operate with 50 to 60 vacancies, is the language he used. So it's expected, they know it's going to happen, but also if that's the number, is that the number they need? So we have future analysis plan, future projects plan, look at the number in more depth, and then hopefully come up with some recommendations.
Okay, great, because I think that's really like the use of staff, obviously, is huge. So the one other thing too is it would be helpful, I'd be interested to know how much overtime is approved. So in other words, is that going to know, is the additional overtime twice that's been approved, is it 3 times, is it half, whatever.
Yeah.
So that would be helpful.
This was just to simplify it for the presentation, just because to not put a million numbers on a page. But there's a table explicitly specifically in the report that shows what the budget number was for 2014. Or sorry, what the approved number was and what the actual number is, so you can see that.
And one more thing I just want to say, the principal statement was just super interesting. But I just want to know, we don't know the reason why, but it's important to ask the question of how is it that comparable cities with half the police staffing have better crime rates than
And that's really the goal of the report, is to start some of these community conversations. So, you know, like we talked about with an oversight investigation, we're not trying to provide those recommendations, we're just trying to spark that community conversation.
Oh, basically, what I wanted to ask, I think you might have answered it. The overtime that is being spent, is it because there is a lack of police officers? So therefore, they have to work for overtime to fill in the gap so that they can make the community safe? Is that the reason that we know that we're spending all this money on overtime?
That's the rationale provided by the department. I can't explicitly say like what they're working every detail for, but I will say that, during the May budget testimony, Chief Smith did say that they're no longer using mandated overtime. They're allowing officers to schedule it and to try to save money, so I haven't looked at the 2024 budget, but he said that in order to try to save money, they're scheduling overtime in these 8-hour chunks, they're not doing it in 4-hour shifts, so that hopefully, he said that will hopefully lead to more operational flexibility and the ability for officers to schedule these shifts. And so yes, I don't have a concrete answer for that, but that's what we.
And I had a question also. When you look at those cities that have half the police per capita, I mean, are there things that they're doing that we're not, and that's why we need to have 3.48 per thousand as opposed to other cities that are around 2 per thousand?
That's what we hope to look at in the future, yeah, because hopefully we'll want to do a deeper dive to see like what sort of, you know, are there alternative responses that they're using? Are they using, you know, for certain calls, are they using, you know, civilian, non-uniformed employees to go to some of these calls? You know, and we actually asked about that, you know, whether they were considering that, and the response we got was that, you know, that would be difficult for the city to do in some areas just because of the labor contract, because they would have to collectively bargain if they were going to change some of these ways that the department is structured. So, you know, say they wanted to use first responders to go to like a non-serious motor vehicle accident, they would have to then negotiate with the Locust Club to try to, you know, pull those responsibilities away from our PD. So it could be as simple as changing it, but the process to get there.
Roseanne, do you, did you look at, or did you look at, or maybe this is for the future, the Syracuse and Buffalo police departments for their percentage of overtime, overruns the same as ours or similar?
So there's a deeper dive into Syracuse, Buffalo, Yonkers, and Albany that's in the report. I didn't get too far into the weeds with their overtime numbers. The overtime analysis really was more specific to Rochester, but it is something that I could easily do in the future now that I kind of know the process, and how to find the numbers. Because it's almost like a teaching process to teach yourself how to read a budget, because every city reports budget differently. So there was quite a bit of, you know, as a former journalist, it's not something I did a lot of. So learning that process was really informative. I think it's going to help in the future because, you know, can add in my toolbox.
Thank you. I
Thank you.
think we can move on.
Appreciate it.
Casey, do you want to start from now?
Sure. Thanks, Will.
Thank you. Just a reiteration, there's more to come. And I want to make sure that the board, but more importantly, the public, understands that these, take time, and this is just the start of the work. So there'll be additional information, additional, research that is conducted, and so we will provide information as we get to pivotal points throughout the process. So again, Will, thank you so much. Next, we have Casey. who is a digital forensic analyst, and he is going to present on a topic that is certainly very interesting to me. It's contemporary, and I think it'll be interesting to you. And it's relative to body worn camera, the manual. And so Casey, I will give you my.
No, yeah.
Okay.
Hi, everyone.
You are?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for that introduction. Casey, digital forensic analyst here at the PAB, and I'll be talking a little bit more about the body worn camera manual proposal for change that was presented to you all in a very brief one-page format. So this will provide a bit more of a detailed overview of what we plan to do. So this is the slide that you've all seen that demonstrates what we plan to do to modify the camera manuals from a long-term project that the PAB has been talking about since the beginning. Essentially, the body-worn camera manual, which is the rule book for the use of body-worn cameras by us police department officers, has not been updated since May 2022 and has not had a broad-based community input process since 2018. So we want to do that. And we have the plan for doing it, which I'll publish tonight. And before we get to that, I want to give just a brief overview to the state of the body-worn camera manual as it exists today. These slides are excerpted from a presentation I gave to staff last year that some of you may have seen. And if you're interested in seeing the rest of that presentation another time, so these are body-worn cameras. These are the 3 body-worn cameras that have been worn by us as police officers. On the right is the current model, the iPro BWC 400, for which there was some $3.6 million spent by Rochester City Council to replace all the cameras in the system and also implement a new digital evidence management system in 2022. So those are the cameras there on the right that are in use today. As you can see, they have a modular battery there at the bottom. That's so that if the battery dies or expands, it doesn't destroy the camera unit. And here we have the docking stations and charging stations for the cameras. So mostly an officer will use the patrol car docking station there on the left. That's in their car. So during the course of their work, they might, for instance, if they arrest a civilian, they will fill out all of the appropriate reports and create a CR number and all those things. And then they will tag the associated video files that they recorded in the course of the work with all of that information. That tagging process is really important because it ensures that the videos are associated with the crime report as the investigation proceeds. And it also ensures that the video is maintained according to the appropriate data retention policy, which is a big part of the manual, and I can talk more about that if you're interested in it. So, who gets a body-worn camera? The rules of the manual I'm about to describe to you only apply to Rochester Police Department members who have a camera, who have been assigned a camera. So who has a camera is an important place to start. And the answer is, it's all officers and sergeants in the patrol sections, in the tactical traffic enforcement canine and canine units. It used to also include school resource officers, but those are discontinued in 2020. And it also includes RPD employees by request or by order of the chief. From 2016 to 2022, lieutenants were also required and were assigned cameras under the policy. But in 2022, that was changed. So the last update to the body-worn camera manual, which was made in May of 2022, had only one change, as far as we know, and that was to remove the lieutenant requirement. We do not know why, but it is one of the questions that we will be looking into. Also, on the question of who's assigned cameras, RPD has said in some documentation, not through an update to the manual, that SWAT members in the above categories will be assigned cameras in the future. We want to look into that, see if it has already been tested, if there's a pilot program for SWAT members, or if they've already been fully rolled out to SWAT. So if you have a camera, then the question becomes, when do you record? There's a set of rules that dictate this. The big thing that maybe not every member of the community knows is that these cameras do not automatically record on their own. They only record when an officer activates them. And when an officer activates and deactivates their camera is dictated by this set of rules. There is a general catch-all that says, unless noted otherwise, any contact with a civilian while performing police duties should be recorded. So you can safely imagine if you're having an interaction with a police officer that they're supposed to be recording that interaction according to the manual. But there are important exceptions to that standard, and also there are mandated situations in which they must describe those too. So recording is required when you are performing an arrest or a prisoner transport, when performing a foot or vehicle pursuit, when performing a detention or stop of a person or vehicle, and when performing use of force. And there are a whole category of optional situations where it is up to the discretion of the officer whether or not to record. And just two examples of that are when officers are canvassing, the community working for witnesses, or when they're interviewing a cooperative witness in the privacy of their residence or police facility. I put that in there just because it is an example of an optional category in the manual that has led to some complaints that we received. So it's one that we want to look into. Then we also want to look at when recording is prohibited, because there's a whole host of situations in which recording is prohibited. The most important one to know, and again, which might be surprising to hear, is that any internal police conversation is prohibited. So two officers talking to each other about police work cannot be recorded on the body-worn camera. That leads to a situation, as someone who's watched quite a bit of body-worn camera footage, where you often see officers who are reporting, for instance, are on their way to, they've been called to an incident, and there's two people in the same car, the cameras will be on because they're required to record while they're in pursuit or headed to an incident, but they won't be talking to each other. And so it's just one sort of unforeseen aspect of the manual, probably, is that it does lead to a certain amount of silence between officers who are. It's also prohibited to record strip searches, PSS interviews, inside bathrooms, and private conversations with family members, things unrelated to this business. That's not an exhaustive list, of course. And they are not required to record when as undercovers, as bomb SWAT, as SCUBA, or under this manual as SWAT. Though, as I mentioned, there are some indications that that policy has changed. So, what rights do civilians have with regard to body-worn camera when interacting with the police officer? Again, the headline is, if you are interacting with a police officer in Rochester, a member of the LPD, and you notice that they have a camera person, and you would like them to record the interaction, you can ask. You can say, I would like you to start recording this. And they must activate their camera if it was already activated, unless it would otherwise violate the policy. Unless it falls into one of the categories of prohibited recording. Okay? So that's a good thing for people to know. You have that right to ask. You can also ask to stop the recording. This comes from, potentially a situation where someone feels that their privacy is being violated. You can ask for the recording to be stopped if you believe that the recording has started, but it is completely up to the officer's discretion whether or not to stop the recording, and they cannot stop the recording if it is a mandated recording. In this diagram on the left, you'll see there's a red light. It's a red LED at the top of every body camera currently in use in Rochester, the officers. That is a great indication, if you're a member of the public, as to whether or not the officer is recording. Because, in the vast majority of circumstances, if the camera is recording, that red light will be on. That's important for us when we're looking at body-worn camera footage because it indicates quickly how many officers in the scenario would. There is a stealth mode on these cameras, which means an officer can choose to turn on a stealth mode, and then when they're recording, that red light will not be on. This is supposed to protect them in scenarios where they wouldn't want to be revealed, perhaps. You can imagine at night, they don't want the red light to reveal their position. That's why the stealth mode exists. But it does lead to this sort of uncertainty. Is the person recording or not? To get around that, members of the public are allowed to ask if the officer is recording, and if the officer, and whether or not the officer is recording, they must reply truthfully unless factors exist that would render such notice unsafe or impractical. That's the language in the name. And finally, regarding civilian rights, some people might, if they know they've been reported during a police action, ask to review the body camera recording. And there is no duty for the officer to comply with that request. That is a decision that could be contemplated by a supervisor or in the course of filing a PSS. So, with that background on the state of the manual, the plan we have in place follows 4 steps. First is to analyze the data with regard to the manual that we currently possess. We have submitted some source information requests to RPD on other topics over the years, and we've received some of this important information, including 9 drafts of the body-worn camera manual dating all the way back in 2016. So we have the initial draft prepared by the Locust Club, through all of the revisions, including community input, so the first finalized draft of 2018 up until today, the May 2022 draft. And analyzing the differences between those drafts can give us a really clear picture of what's been at stake during the discussion around the rules of body on camera. What have people proposed? What has been settled on? And when has community had strong opinions about these different rules? There's also an audit report, which was performed by RPD, more specifically the Office of Business Intelligence, which Will mentioned earlier, in 2018. A lot of really good information in that report. Unfortunately, it is the only public report of the body on camera program performed in the history of the program, and it's 7 years old. So we need the iPro manual for the body on camera currently in use is an important resource for us. There's also a whole collection of policy research papers which were put together again in 2018. You'll see there's a flurry of focus on body-worn camera in 2018. Unfortunately, not a lot since then. And so RIT's CPSI put together a collection of papers looking at officer attitudes with regard to the program, also attitudes in the public. There's good data there. And then CJAP, the Criminal Justice Advocacy Board, which many of you know, played a really key role in the development of the body-worn camera program and put together a great report in 2018 with comprehensive feedback from a variety of community stakeholders on issues that they thought were essential to the rules of the body-worn camera manual. But again, it's from 2018 and we want up-to-date input. The last piece of data that we're going to be analyzing here at the beginning that we already possess is the archive of complaints and PTNs received by the PAB related to body-worn camera activity. So there's any number of complaints that we received over the years in which body-worn camera was used or not used. They may have been activation or non-activation, and all of that's relevant data as we're looking at compliance rates and trends over the years since the implementation of body-worn camera. There's also plenty of data we need that we do not yet have, and so we will be submitting, of course, a source of information request to the Rochester Police Department on this particular project. Some of the things we'll be looking for are PSS documents and command discipline related to body-worn cameras since the implementation of the program. Draft manual updates. We know that they've been working on updates to the manual for some time. We'd love to look at what they have so far or understanding of where they think these things are going. And any rules regarding body worn camera usage that are not included. Any internal guidelines for auditing the archive of body worn camera footage, and also any internal guidelines for the release of body worn camera footage to the public that may extend beyond those rules included. We also want to acquire this, surprise, but it's useful information for us to have. We want to acquire one of these units for ourselves as a PAB. And the reasoning behind that is that when you're performing forensic analysis of video, it's really appropriate to have access to your own version of the camera so that you can create your own files and compare those files. Also, we want to be able to get a sense of what's like for an officer to wear this camera. How does the activation and deactivation work? How does the self mode get activated? All of these questions, in case they become pertinent during the course of our analysis. And finally, we'll be requesting body-worn camera policies from other police oversight agencies around the country who've been looking at these same issues and may have developed best practices around body-worn camera policies in police oversight. The third step, really essential step, maybe the most important step, is engaging community stakeholders. So as I mentioned, at the advent of the body-worn camera program, there's a real emphasis in public discourse, but also in the development of the manual on community input. Representatives from any number of different organizations, hands-on at the table, making suggestions about what the rules of this program should be. There's a real understanding that it was a high-stakes question. There's real privacy concerns around mass data collection like this. And then, of course, at the time, there was a strong feeling that this could be a sea change in police oversight. So we want to bring back those same stakeholders to the table to really look at what has happened since 2018. Has the body-worn camera program fulfilled the goals that it was set out to fulfill? What are the effects of having 500 or so body-worn cameras on the street reported every day? And is it serving the cause of police oversight in our community? So some of the stakeholders that we already know, the essential this process include everybody on the Police Accountability Board Alliance, everyone involved in CJAB and the United Christian Leadership Ministries Task Force on Body-Worn Camera, as well as this was rightfully focused on in the CJAB report, and I thought it was appropriate to include it here, input from stakeholders in our CSC. So not just students, though of course they have critical input on this question, but also teachers and parents, because the presence of mass data collection is a particularly pertinent issue to that community. And finally, of course, this entire effort, as with all community input proposals for change, will be led and done in collaboration with our PACE division to ensure the community organizations that we're connecting with every week during PACE events are included and that their input is found in our, And then finally, after we've done all of that, we'll start to draft a manual. So it's, I don't know if any of you have read the whole thing before. It's not super long, but it's pretty dense. And redrafting it will be an endeavor. It's a task that we've been looking at for a long time. It feels like now is the appropriate moment to begin. Some problem areas that we've identified, things over the years that became apparent that we knew we would want to look at include lieutenant requirement, as I mentioned earlier. We definitely need to know why it was removed and what effect that's had. We also want to look at the rates of non and delayed activation since the beginning of the program, why those things are happening, are there any patterns across non or delayed activation during critical incidents. Also buffer time. This is something that maybe is worth spending a moment on. When you see body-worn camera released by the Rochester Police Department, you may notice that the first 30 seconds or so of the video is often silent. And that's because of a pre-recorded buffer that is always being recorded on these cameras, and which is only ever saved once an officer presses activate. That pre-report buffer is set to 30 seconds. These cameras are capable of different times of pre-report buffer. And unfortunately, there is not a rule in the manual about that buffer time. And we have noticed, both in Rochester and other oversight jurisdictions across the country, that buffer is often critical to retaining evidence during critical incidents. And so we want to look at how is buffer time being utilized on cameras, and should we establish a clear rule? And if so, what should it be? We want to return to the question of privacy, because it's one that was really important at the beginning of the draft of the manual, maybe stripped a bit. And we want to look at the issue of disclosure of images of use of force against juveniles. It has been an issue for the PAB to access body-worn camera footage of those scenarios, and so we want to look at it programmatically as a trend. With CJAP, the board, and the PABA, we will collect edits and updates, and of course, present the final draft to the board for input, and finally send it to RPD and council for consideration. And that's the end of my presentation. Happy to answer any questions you might have, whether about the manual or about the plan. And I'll let some possible further questions and points of inquiry on the board. The job leaders.
Do we have any questions?
Thanks, Stuart. To start, for automatic recording, is that possible with these current cameras? Those cameras are when lights are activated or doors open, or, officer, there's other ways that cameras automatically activated with other jurisdictions. That's what's possible with this camera.
Yeah, so we want to look at that in more detail. It's definitely of interest. We do know that the Genetec clearance system, through which all of the evidence collected by the body-worn cameras are maintained, does have the capability of interacting with other cameras and in other jurisdictions to do exactly what you described, to trigger when a door is open or when a gun is on the holster and so on. Whether or not it's possible with this particular camera is something that we need to look into, and also whether or not it would be possible with this camera and this particular nemesis.
And do we know with this particular camera if the buffer can be changed to a minute or 2 minutes or 30 seconds?
So we know that it can be changed, and that's one of the questions we want to look at is it being changed? Is there a different buffer from camera to camera officers? Because there isn't a rule about it in the manual. But what is possible in terms of the buffer technologically and then at the policy level is a key question.
Hello. I want to ask a question about the stealth mode. Yeah. Okay, I know that a lot of times the stealth mode, I guess, is used because if the officer might be incognito or whatever it is. But also too, if like in the bathrooms, all that might be privacy law. But suppose someone who's being held is in the bathroom or whatever it is with the officer, can that person ask for the officer to turn on the body-worn camera?
So my understanding of the manual is that recording in a bathroom is good. So that wouldn't be possible.
The reason I ask the question is because a lot of things is done, okay, behind the scene because of certain things that may be privacy laws. So there's a lot of people, and this is my personal understanding, that if I'm in somewhere and an officer might be just in a bad apple or whatever you want to call it, and he decides he wants to beat me or whatever he wants to do to me in the bathroom, out because of, so how do one prove that? So if it says here, if I ask for the body-worn camera to turn on, it should, to me, should no matter where we are. If I'm asking that officer for my safety, okay, for that camera to be turned on. So is anything that you know, I know you said it's no, but can we either try to write something in? Because if somebody gives their consent, okay, to me, it should be, they should be able to get, camera footage.
Yeah, definitely, we want to look closely at what are the rules that currently exist and what might what community might be interested in changing. But I will say that any use of force, like the situation you're describing, would be a mandated report, and I believe it would overrule the bathroom prohibition. So there are some aspects of the manual where you can imagine two things are happening. One's a prohibition, one's a mandated. I do believe that when it's mandated, that takes precedent.
I'm gonna let it go.
Okay, yeah.
Except I'm using force, I'm not gonna put on no cameras anyway. Okay.
But that's a very interesting and much needed question. And thank you so much, Casey. This is extremely comprehensive and the community needs it. My address is to the community. For those of you who are watching and you see this information, please share it with your neighbors, talk to people, get back to PAB members, get back to the office. The more information that we generate in the community, the better it is for everyone's safety. Please, let's get the talk going and see how far we can get with making sure everyone in the community is safe, even with the use of the body-worn camera.
Are there, Jorah, you had a question?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sheriff, where's the other mic?
Casey has it, so he can answer.
It's not a question so much as my understanding is that it's at the officer's discretion when they answer domestic abuse call or there's a minor, they don't have the camera, they don't have the camera on. And I guess my concern is, again, it should be up to the citizen or the parent. And I would like some protocol where the officer says, do you want the body worn camera on? Rather than just the officer making that call.
Yeah, we'll definitely look into both of those that you mentioned. And that was the position that you just described was one that was articulated by the CJAC report in 2018. A long time.
Well, Casey, thank you for that thorough investigation of body-worn cameras. I guess I shouldn't use that word, but thorough report on our body-worn cameras. If there are no other questions, we will move on to staff reports.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Casey. Thank you, Casey. This is one that really is, certainly professionally, interesting, but I think it's just apropos given what's going on right now, right in our own community. So again, thank you, Casey. We appreciate you. So good evening, board members, to our staff who are here, those who are guests in the audience, as well as those who are listening either in real time or eventually in a delayed manner. Certainly good evening. To the board, I just want to thank you and take a pause for just a moment to thank you for your continued leadership and commitment. I'm here this evening to provide just a high-level update on the Police Accountability Board's activities for the month of July 2025. Board members, you do have the report, and to the public and to staff, we upload these reports the next day on our website, so they are available for everyone to review. We certainly really operate from the context of accountability as well as transparency. So while the court's ruling in April has redefined some aspects of our work, we remain absolutely resolute in our mission, and this past month is really a great and strong example of how we continue to adapt, engage, and to lead with integrity. So the first July activity that I want to note is just Focus Club 2 compliance and legal positioning. As Noted previously, in April 2025, the Monroe County Supreme Court decision limited our authority to investigate individual alleged misconduct complaints. And so we have responded to this shift with precision. Internally, we've implemented compliance protocols that clearly separate policy level oversight from individual case level activity. We are in communication with our legal counsel representing the PAB during the appeal, and we're also working directly with Corporation Counsel Patrick B. to ensure that there is a shared understanding and alignment across all city entities. In the meantime, our commitment to oversight, transparency, and meaningful public engagement has not wavered. I want to mention a new protocol that was just put in place last Friday. PAB presence at a death caused by a police officer when there are press conferences. And I just have to pause and just say again, our condolences to the family and friends and those who knew the gentleman that had a death caused by the police officer. So let me tell you about our new protocol. In the event of a death caused by a police officer, a PAB representative will attend the city's press conference. This ensures that the community sees us literally and symbolically as a presence in moments of tragedy and sadness. Our role is not only to observe, but also to demonstrate accountability, empathy, and civic responsibility. So that is effective Friday moving forward. Let me give you a few highlights from our division. Our accountability and transparency team has maintained momentum with their work. This is so important. This is an important statistic. Despite being impacted by the evolving legal landscape, in July we received 18 complaints. Just let that sink in for a minute. 18 complaints, 3 of which were linked to systemic issues uncovered during policy research. So again, we are allowed to look at trends, systemic issues, etc. So their efforts to track, analyze, and categorize complaints by alleged misconduct types, such as abuse of authority and use of force, helps us to spot trends. In terms of accessibility, 17 of the complaints were submitted in English, and 1 was submitted in American Sign Language. So we thank our language access coordinator for her work. So this really highlights our commitment to language inclusivity and to ensure that the diverse community has multiple access points to interact with the Police Accountability Board. Policy and oversight, you heard from Will Cleveland earlier. We continue to dig into complex issues that directly affect the public. You heard from, he's in accountability and transparency, but you heard from Casey around the body worn camera policy. Last month, calls for service. We're working on transport practices, officer trauma responses, just to name a few. So one key point that I just need to reiterate here at the board meeting, when we are asking for information, it's not about individual alleged misconduct. Instead, our team is reviewing practices and procedures with the goal of identifying opportunities for policy reform. And while the manual is not policy per se, right, that manual governs the actions and the way that law enforcement officers operate. So that's really critical. So I just want to uplift that point. So community engagement, showing up and listening. We know that the data, the reports, policy are all important, but so is presence. And that's why our public affairs and community engagement team continues to be out in the community. And I just met with President Miguel Melendez this week, and he said every event that he has been in attendance, he's seen the PAB table, which to me is very encouraging and just very positive. So in July, the PACE team staffed multiple events where we distributed materials, answered questions, and connected with the residents. And my understanding is that we have to replenish because we've run out of some of our materials, which is a good problem to have, certainly. At one event alone, just recently this week, we had more than 50 individuals who visited our table. Certainly the weather has helped that too. People are out, but we certainly will capitalize on Mother Nature. These interactions reinforce the public's interest in oversight and help to restore trust, one conversation at a time, which is important to us. And Yvonne, I know at last month's board meeting, you asked what's coming up. So let me tell you what's coming up, okay? So it is a printed list, but this is also for the public. And Brittany, our director of PACE, has worked with Lou so that when you type in the PAB.org, there's a pop-up and it shows you where it's going to be.
All right.
So on Saturday, we'll be at the Jordan Health Front Porch Festival. Also, another part of our team will be at the Lyle Otis Community Association. And board members, if you hear certainly an event that interests you or that is in your neck of the woods, we would just respectfully ask if you have the time to come and participate. On the 10th is the Dominican Day at the International Plaza. On the 15th, Annual Snug Day. The 18th, and again, these are all August. Uplift Charles House Neighbor in Action Area. On the 17th, Rock the Plaza at the International Plaza. The 18th, the Edgerton Area Neighborhood Association. 20th of August, Rock the Block. 21st of August, Maplewood Neighborhood Association. 23rd, which is, I know, a favorite of many, the Clarissa Street Reunion. The 24th, International Salsa Day at the International Plaza. And we'll end the month on the 29th with a back to school drive. So again, in the Friday letter, we will make sure you have those dates, events, location, and the time. But also if you just go on the website, there's a pop-up. So we certainly hope that you are able to participate in one or more. And if I counted correctly, that's 12 events. So they are out and about, and I really appreciate the work that they're doing. So there's lots of opportunities for the board to connect with the community in the month of August.
And Doctor, could you just reiterate the, website?
Oh,
for the
sure,
public?
PAB.org,
Okay.
yes. And once you type that in, a nice pop-up in blue and gold comes right up on the screen shortly after you click it. So transparency just doesn't stop at the streets, it also lives online because we are in that time and place. So our website remains one of our powerful tools. You also have the website utilization report in your folders, and that will be posted online as well. So you'll be interested to know that visitors engage heavily with our submit a complaint page and reports portal. Let me say that again. Visitors engaged heavily with our submit a complaint page and reports portal. That's not slowing people down from engaging on our website and wanting to then submit a complaint. First-time traffic and return visitors remain strong, showing consistent interest. The top traffic source continues to be direct and organic search, which means people are intentionally looking for us, the police accountability. So that said, our board meeting materials page is underutilized. So we will be increasing promotion to encourage the public to review agendas, minutes, and recordings of our meetings. So tomorrow on Friday, I debrief with both my leadership team and the PACE team. So I've already mapped out some suggestions of ways that we can have the website even more utilized than it is. So that is forthcoming. So this is a good time to remind everyone that our full board report, this report right here, including complaint intake data, engagement highlights, and division updates, are available at www.rockpab.org/meeting-notes. So you can find that there. So in closing, I want to say this, and I want to say this incredibly, certainly humbly, yet passionately. The PAB is not retreating. We are evolving. We are legally compliant, community connected, and more strategic now than ever. As we await the updates on our city's appeal, our focus remains on systemic oversight, meaningful engagement, and public transparency. Your individual and collective support as board members is essential, and together, we are demonstrating what ethical, informed civilian oversight can look like even during challenging times. I appreciate each of you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
No, okay, once again, the website is up. But if there's any kind of way that we can put on there when we get the tentative date, when we do go to court, is it allowable for the public to show up, you know, to, I want to say, to embrace, to support us? So can we put that also later on, when we know that, on our website?
I think what we've done this before, we actually have put it on social media to let individuals know, but we certainly can connect that back to the website. I don't think that would be too difficult, but we have been, and we are working with our partners like the Police Accountability Board Alliance and United Christian Leadership Ministries, et cetera, to keep them aware and to pass the word on as well.
Because it's about them.
Correct.
Not really us, so we can't do it by ourselves, is the point.
Agreed.
We need them to stand behind us, to support, because they voted for it and they got what they needed and wanted. So that's what I'm saying, that's why it's very important for the public to be able, if they so desire to come out and support, they voted for.
Great.
Thank you for that reminder, Yvonne. I had just a question. I know we reported this before, but the amount of complaints from the public that go into PSS, I know it's nowhere near ours, but I just kind of reminded the fact that we got 18 complaints, and of course, we can individually investigate. We'll look at them as for patterns. But the fact that I'm assuming maybe we can find out, or I guess we would know when we get them. Have there been a ton of complaints that have started to go into PSS? Public as opposed to coming to us? Have you seen a rise in their numbers at all?
No.
Okay, so it seems like still the public trusts us mainly to look at these complaints, and unfortunately we're not able to do that right now. But again, appreciate the public still bringing those to us. We anticipate winning and we'll be able to do more with them, but still, it's important that we still get those complaints, and so let our team help with them underneath the guidelines of the decision. But I do appreciate public still understanding that they can trust us, and trust the work going on here. I think that's information, even with the support decision, those are still coming here in our other places.
Larry, I think that is a really important point. This is not us saying this. When we talk to individuals, the reason why they come to us, the main reason why they come to us is fear of retaliation, right? That we're a safe, non-judgmental, unbiased entity, agency in this case, that they can report this to. And, in some cases, they do want anonymity, and that is important to them. And so, for those who don't know that, it's important to uplift that. But yes, we are still taking complaints, but people are sometimes concerned to report it to PSS. Good, okay, good.
Great, thank you for that outstanding report. At this point in time, I guess Brittany is coming up to talk about the statewide civilian oversight consortium. Brittany? We'll give you 2 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Joyful evening. I love that. So, I'm Brittany Wells. I'm the Director of Public Affairs and Community Engagement. Thank you for having me again this evening. So I'm just going to provide a brief update about the 2025 New York State-wide Oversight Consortium, which is a virtual conference that we're currently planning. So the 2025 New York Statewide Oversight Consortium is tentatively scheduled for Tuesday, September 30th, and it will be hosted virtually via Zoom by the Rochester Police Accountability Board, which is us. The inaugural conference is designed for civilian oversight agencies all across New York State. The primary goal is to collaboratively draft a governance structure for the consortium and establish a working group focused on deliverables such as a shared legislative agenda and best practices. So about the planning process, we are currently reaching out to 8 oversight agencies across the state to participate. A few of those agencies consist of the cities Albany, Clarkstown, Ithaca, Newburgh, New York City, Syracuse, Schenectady, and Village of Austin. Some of our initial conversations have been extremely positive, and we are expecting and optimistic that all of them will be participating in the conference. I've actually had conversations with Buffalo as well. They don't currently have an oversight agency, but they're in the process of city council members pushing that as well. So we'll see where they're at in that week.
New York City?
I listen to
Oh.
I'll give you a copy. Speaker, we are in communication with NACO regarding a keynote speaker and expect to finalize that portion of our agenda by the end of the month. In terms of invitations and outreach, our formal invitations will be sent out in mid-August. Based on early discussions, we anticipate participation from all the invited agencies. When we talk about technology and logistics, because we're talking about Zoom, the conference will be hosted via Zoom. We are currently working with the city's IT department to test features such as breakout rooms, and several of our staff members that are in PACE have agreed to go through a series of trainings to make sure that they can participate in helping and assist with these breakout rooms and other features that may be needed during the conference. Live captioning will also be provided for all these sessions, and we are already have committed ASL interpreters for this event as well. Next steps and board participation. So our next steps is really just make sure those invitations get out by mid-August. That is important for us. That our keynote speaker is confirmed by August 30th, that we finalize our agenda. And we also welcome and encourage all the board members to participate in this virtual conference. It is important just because we are the city as the host for you all to be there, and then we hope that you participate. All right.
Great, thank you.
Any questions or concerns about?
So basically, we're doing excellent. We're doing really good with it, and give that compliment to you.
Thank you, ma'am.
I was talking with, because Jason is on
Yes, he's part of it.
so have you did anything yet with trying to get, our local congregations, churches involved in that?
So glad you asked. And Jason's actually kind of our, I guess, honorary faith-based mission person. We have been in talks with a few different, few churches. I know you met with recently a few of the pastors already. We also have been speaking with the Faith News Roundtable and some of the other organizations that are all like the Baptists and all those different organizations, and how they can play different roles with the PAB. So we are in talks. I would love to have more conversation with you about that, because I know that you're also a pastor. So we can definitely use more help when it comes to speaking to other clergy members.
And I hope you're reaching out to
Yeah,
people
of
who aren't
course.
Christian as well.
Of course. You are not left
The
out.
Muslim community.
That was coming up, so you wanna, participate in helping with that?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Okay, great.
Okay. Then I will be speaking with both of you. Okay.
Right.
Any other questions?
I had a couple, really glad this is happening. We talked about it even before Dr. Myers started about this would be a great idea, but all the priorities at the time, now that we're in a place of daily some sorts of going is good. And was there a thought of having it in person? Was it cost prohibitive? Why, how was the decision made to do it over Zoom as opposed to inviting everybody to Rochester? I understand that. I get that.
No, I understand. So I think initially, after attending the regional conference, we thought it'd be easier to start off with a virtual conference. Plus, we're all planning to meet up at the national conference, NACO's National Conference in Minneapolis. NACO's National Conference in Minneapolis, where we're also going to have further discussions. So I think this is just the start, and then hopefully we'll have to plan another bigger conference later on in the spring.
Okay, right. And then, I definitely want to help take part in some of that conversation at the conference, especially talk about the legislative work. And that's why I want to be able to bring in like other places that we as board members serve, for bringing our congregations or unions or groups that we're part of hopefully the other board members and the other agencies will also think about it as we do legislative work and the regular work.
I think Keith has.
Yeah, Keith, I just.
In addition to non-Christian groups, I think you also need to focus on mainline denominations because we tend to not hear anything. And we're not invited.
Okay. When you say mainline denominations, please break that down to me.
Presbyterians, Methodists, United Church of Christ, the Episcopal Church USA.
They're on my list.
I have not seen one thing,
Okay. I mean,
not one invitation.
hold on now. Yeah, we just getting started.
I just want to make sure because in the past I'm not from Rochester. I noticed a division.
It is. There's a lot of.
Okay. So I am not, I am not invited to the pastor's roundtable because I'm not from that tradition.
Right.
But the problems are universal. And they shouldn't be siloed, as you say. So that's just my major concern. I know but I'm just saying that we could do a better job of reaching out to people in these denominations that also have social justice.
Right.
I agree.
So you gonna head that up, right?
Also, are you engaging community, non-religious community groups in this as well?
You said non-religious?
Yeah. Okay, no, I just didn't understand, like, because I didn't know if it's just, if the agencies are meeting, but if you're inviting the larger community as well, I wasn't clear about who this conference is for that one.
No,
not the conference.
she was just talking in general. And
Oh,
we were reaching
okay.
out to a lot of the faith-based community members and make sure that we're engaging into what PACE was doing.
I got it, okay,
Yes,
I
and we're meeting
misunderstood,
with all
I thought you meant for
No.
the conference, okay. So the conference is just for the
us.
agency, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Conference for everybody.
And yeah, it sounds like you guys are really rolling with the planning. I just have an idea of what the program will be like. What's the duration planned?
That is a good question. I did not include that purposely.
Roughly.
Right now, it's pretty much almost all day. It's like 9 to 10.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
9 to 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Larry hinted at this a little bit, but I did want to give recognition to him because when I was being onboarded, he mentioned that he'd had some conversations with Albany and I know New York City in particular. And so we just took the baton from him and we're trying to get it over the finish line. But I wanted to just formally recognize that that had been something that was really important to you for us to get together. And I think it really started to cement when some of us went to Tucson and we had the panel with Albany, New York City, and Rochester. There really was a synergy between the three agencies, and we really cemented very strong, positive relationships. And I know Sheriff Clark is going to talk about Albany a little bit later, but there was a lot of synergy when we got together. So just a formal recognition to former Chair Knox for his involvement and his interest and desire for us to get to this point. So he started it. We're trying to finish it.
Actually, one last question. I'm so sorry for the reach. Yeah, that's actually a very good point. So is there, obviously you've already engaged NACOL and they're going to assist with providing a keynote speaker. Is there not another model for other states or even some guidance NACOL can have for a smaller scale, essentially a statewide initiative like this?
I think that's a good question and one we probably should.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if Rochester leads the way, so.
Okay, she has a.
Sure.
She is Arlene Brown. And thank you so much for my comment. It has nothing to do with this, so I was going to wait until all of this was taken care of. And find out if there are boots on the ground.
Thank you.
We don't ban.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you all so very much. Well done. I don't hear anybody applauding. Give everybody a round of applause for that.
Outstanding job, Reggie.
Yes, a lot of
Thank
work
you.
done and,
Yes.
well presented. I've been on presentations and I think you all did an excellent job. Has anyone mentioned Pastor Harvey or has things?
It's part of my report. Yes. In my opening, we're going to move on to the chair's report. In my opening remarks, I forgot to thank our ASL interpreters who are doing an outstanding job. And that's James Brown and Madison Baldwin. Thank you for your hard work. And moving on, and some more good news that I received from our former chair, and that is the interviews for the Northwest seat have been completed by council.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we are expecting an appointment next month. So hopefully that's good news. And thank you for following up on that, Larry. And we still have several open seats. So anyone interested, please contact us so that we can put you in contact with the Alliance so that we can get these essential seats filled. With that, I'm going to move on before I make a statement, a chair statement, to indicate that this past month was kind of a sad month for the city because, as you are aware, the mayor lost his sister, Stacy, and also a former board member, PAB board member, I think former chair also, Reverend Ricky, former board member, Reverend Ricky Harvey also lost his youngest son, who was 21 years old, to an auto accident. So on behalf of the PAB, we're sending our condolences out to both of them. And I did request that flowers be sent to the mayor on behalf of him losing his sister, and that is an expense that's not reimbursable through the PAB. So any donations that members would like to make, please get that to Leslie, and we will cover the cost for that. And also Reverend Harvey, who is the pastor of Mount Olivet Baptist Church, has set up a scholarship fund in the name of his youngest son. So anyone interested in donating to that, please go onto their website and you can make a donation. And by the way, both of them, the funerals for both individuals was this past Saturday. So it's kind of a sad statement. Also moving on, as the chair of the Rochester Police Accountability Board, I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge two important developments that speak to the purpose and responsibility of independent police oversight. First, we stand with the community in calling for transparency following the most recent death caused by RPD officers on Thurston Road right here in the city of Rochester. We extend our deepest condolences to the family and those in the community that are affected by this. Incidents like this is why independent oversight agencies are essential. The PAB recognizes the ongoing investigation by RPD and the New York State Attorney General's office. Independent oversight exists because accountability should not depend on internal processes alone. The community deserves a voice, and the PAB is committed to amplifying that voice with integrity, urgency, and care. During this time, the Police Accountability Board remains a resource for the community, providing information, listening to concerns, and helping the residents navigate this difficult moment. And secondly, I wanted to inform the community that we did express our support for the Albany Community Police Review Board as they defend their right for independent legal counsel and the essential role of community oversight in public safety in their community. The PAB board did write a letter of support to the Albany Review Board. And what's happening is a reminder that independent police oversight must be protected at all levels. Civilian review boards were created to serve the public, not public interest, political interest. Undermining the independence threatens the very accountability communities have fought to secure. The Rochester PAB stands with the Albany Community Police Review Board and affirms our shared commitment to transparency, integrity, and community-led oversight. Oversight exists to serve the public, and it must be rooted in community power, not politics. And I say that to say that in New York State, it seems like civilian review is under attack, and we must remain steadfast, and we must continue to fight, because in 2019, 74% of the community wanted community oversight, and we must stand with our community, and we must continue to support what the voters of this community demand, and that is community oversight. And with that, that will basically, that completes my report.
Thank you.
You're there. Thank you. Thank you. Under committee reports, we realize that we need to elect a new chair for the training committee and the youth and community engagement committee. As chair of the board, I agreed to take on the role as chair of the training committee. And I'm hoping that my vice chair will take on the role of youth and community engagement committee. And what we will do is, Larry, I'm asking that you assist me in the training committee, and I will let Lawam select someone to assist her in the youth engagement.
Well, first I'll see if anybody would like to volunteer to do that, or I voluntarily.
Oh, you come on.
I mean, Yvonne, would you like to join me on the subcommittee? Yeah. We can chat more about that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So, Dr. Executive Director, you now have chairs for both committees, and we look forward to going to work. At this point in time, is there any old business?
We just need to make sure that we move the Will's oversight investigation. So you have to move to close the oversight and then second it, so.
Okay, can I have a motion?
Motion to move the oversight investigation from Will Cleveland.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, it's been moved and approved. Thank you.
No, that one.
Okay, any new business? With that,
Actually, one bit, just
Yeah.
adding as democracy is under attack. I won't go too long, but obviously we had a great transition here with me becoming no longer being chair, but also the Albany board chair moved on to a new position, which I think is good. And but on top of that, that's her position to talk about her new job.
I'm having trouble hearing you, sorry. Can you
Oh,
say
yeah,
this
so the
one
Albany
more?
chair moved on also, so there's a new chair that just got voted on in Albany. But again,
Oh.
this kind of goes back to when things are voted in and there's a working democracy, there's smooth changes in leadership, but the mission still stays the same. If you watch the Albany board meeting from last week, there's pretty, there's obviously some concern they had there. The community board members were speaking up even with their new leadership change. So even with their leadership change here, the work is still going on. So I appreciate Bill with his leadership going forward, and also wishing luck to the new Albany chair too. They have their leadership change.
thank you.
With Larry saying that, I'm sorry, I did forget to mention, her name is Antoinette Santos, who's the chair, and she actually called me on my desk and phone and left a message saying, thank you to the board for that letter. They are extremely grateful. So we've been playing telephone tag, but I will hopefully catch her tomorrow, but she wanted to make sure that I conveyed her appreciation for that letter. It meant a lot to them.
Oh, thank you.
Let her know that she's welcome.
Something personal before you close. Something personal before you close. I just wanted to say something personal. First of all, Thank you for all the staff, your hard work and everything you've done. And now a big whoop whoop. Today is my 54th wedding anniversary. Yes, I should be home with my boyfriend that I was married 33 years ago. But instead, I'm sitting here with you all. Please feel how privileged you are to have that.
And tell your boyfriend.
Tell your boyfriend, thank you.
That should go by heart.
So with that being said, we're trying not to keep you too long for executive session, but I will accept the motion to move into executive session. I don't think any votes are gonna be taken. So,
For legal discussion.
so we're moving to executive session for legal discussion, and we will be back after that to adjourn. So could I have a motion? Got it, second? All in favor?
Aye.
And thank you everyone for your standing support.
Victoria,
All those carbs I just ate.
Good evening. We're back from executive committee. No votes were taken, so at this point in time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Oh, I want to do that.
Okay, Gerald, one last.
I so move.
Second?
Before I second, I do want to thank Rabbi Sal for her many years of service as an original board member.
I agree. You will be missed, and I'm glad you're coming back
I'm not
as a
gone yet,
volunteer.
so we'll see what happens.
Right. So, all in favor? Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you for tuning in tonight.